people not understanding if they are asking the right questions. Okay? And without having the right questions, no matter what you do, okay, if you're not asking the right question, no matter how you answer the question, it does not matter. Okay? Because to begin with, you were not focusing on the questions that matter. How would you identify that the question you are working is a good question? Anyone? How would you identify, how would you know that some of you are working on some topics and things like that, you know that, okay? How would you know that I have got an interesting research question? Yes, sir. Okay. Okay, so literature review would help you to understand where you are. Yeah. But how would you know that what you are going to do is interesting? Okay. The topic is usually a broad area. Okay? Then you have to get into pretty specific that, okay, what kind of question I am asking. Somebody was raising hand from this side. Yes, sir, please go ahead. Okay. And how do you know that literature is telling that the answer is not available? Sure. Okay. Yes, yes, please. Possible. Usually, when I'm reading a paper that has come to me, and the length of the papers in social sciences are typically long, okay? They will be like 40, 45 pages. Some could be higher than that, okay? The number of pages. And within the first 3 paragraphs, I know whether this paper is going to be asked for a revision or not within first 3 paragraphs. How? You say it's cruel, okay? The person has actually wrote 45 pages, and you are reading only 3 paragraphs and making up your mind what's going to happen with this paper. What exactly we are looking, if we don't get those within the first 3 paragraphs, then our focus changes completely. And then we read the rest of the paper with a different mindset. Yes, please, ma'am. Can you give me an example from your area that this is the, no, you're absolutely right what you're saying, okay? I'm just probing a little bit more. That can you give me an example that, okay, here is a question that I would consider that if I answer this question, I consider this one as an interesting question.
I can know whether I'm asking the right question, like if I define an area, it's more entrepreneurship. So I'm trying to identify the skills and how they can be developed. So I'm focusing.
And you will find a lot of papers, okay, who are working on that, because the women entrepreneurship as an area is a growing area. You find people talking about like what makes women entrepreneurs, okay, what skills they need. So what, how would you say that, okay, what you are, isn't you are asking the same question that others have asked? Okay, okay, yeah, keep that in mind, okay. Yeah, go ahead, okay. Go on. So let's say you answer because you said, okay, it's not just about her, okay? And these are applicable to everyone. All of us probably can relate to those issues. Just an example, okay? So please don't feel bad, because this is my style of interacting with my participants, okay? So let's say if you're saying that the context is so unique, every context is unique, and even though the same question has been answered in a different context, not been answered in the particular context you are interested in. But what's the worth of that answer? Because let's say you did one more study, okay? Now again, people will say that your study is applicable to the context you examine, okay? So it has probably no additional value beyond the context you examine. Okay? So in the long list of articles, yours will be one more, isn't it? Would you consider that as an interesting research question still? For whom? You're targeting a very specific small part of a big part, okay? Social science is like that, okay? So for participating, and this is sort of my style, okay? So please don't feel bad, because unless we are forced to think, there are certain things will not become clear that we are doing. Okay? Why should we think about these issues? Why I'm asking, it's about econometrics we want to talk about. Why I'm spending time about the research question. Okay? It seems like it's very natural that if I find it, that has to be interesting. Okay? Because I found one. Okay? And why do you think that, okay, I read enough literature review, I have done. So definitely, it's not for argument. I'm just putting that there are things, okay, that we have to kind of push. It's not just problem related to, like, just to us. Okay, it's a global issue, and it's not about any particular discipline. It's about social sciences. Okay, so broad. Okay, that anything goes. Sure. When we are operating in that kind of reference, that anything goes, we are really in trouble. Why are we doing all this? Okay? Yes, please. There is a role, and there is a role and function of each study, and they can play a specific role. And case studies, as you said, they can be used to maybe generate new theory, okay? Or as opposed to provide an answer, because most of the time it's the question that matters, not the answer that matters. And this is my thing, okay? That when I'm talking to my students, all I'm trying to tell them how to ask questions. Because once we are asking the right questions, somebody will give you the answer. That's there. Okay? Somebody knows the answer of that question. It doesn't matter. And it's not just the research, even in the like companies, organizations, if you're working, managing things. If you know what's the question to ask, there are experts who will give you the answer. Okay? And you don't have to expert to know. Nobody knows everything. Right? And it's not even needed to know everything. But if we know that right question, then the answer that you are going to get is going to be meaningful. But if you're not asking the right question, okay, go ahead. Research gap, okay? So we're talking about the literature review, okay? So that's what you do, okay? So research gap, and now a typical style, okay? But and my friend, you are operating in a world, it doesn't matter what you think, what the reviewers are thinking. Okay? Whether they find your question, or whether you are considering your question important, you are passionate about it. Okay? No, just let me finish, okay? You are passionate about it, and you are, okay? But that does not matter. It matters that whether others find your question an interesting question or not, and can you convince them why the question you are asking is an interesting question, okay? So it doesn't matter what it's subjective, okay? And that's why there are other people what subjective decisions they are making. There are 2 or 3, 4 people who are going to make a call on your life, okay? Because you might have spent 2 years working on a research problem, trying to get it through the gate, okay? The gatekeepers are there. And they will be frustrated and say, I did so much, and these idiots can't understand what I have done. It's a 600 pages dissertation I have written, and these people can't really figure it out. They don't know anything. Okay? No matter how much you say or crib about it, it doesn't matter, because they are going to. You keep thinking, okay? We will figure it out. Okay? We'll figure it out that it's not an easy way. There is an easy answer. But what I'm trying to tell you is to think about it. Okay? That am I asking the right question? And how would I know that I'm asking the right question? Those are the 2 things. Okay? So let's try to do a few things, and I'll hopefully kind of push you to go things like, so somebody was kind of talking about that, okay, is going to solve some problem. Okay? So let's say there is something that you are worrying about, or in your area, people are dying or things are happening, and nobody is able to kind of understand why this is happening. Everybody recognizes the problem, but the answer is not there. And if you are already kind of spotting an issue where many people are worried about that, how to do it, okay? So the problem is sort of an easy part. It's a grand challenge, okay? So if you are working on a grand challenge, whether it's in mathematics or physics or things like that, where there are people are struggling to answer something, figure it out, and they haven't been able to, right? So the challenge is already given. It's well accepted. If you can answer that question, you got the deal. Okay? Otherwise, it won't. So that's obviously the second. Next part is that who wants to know the answer of that question? That's the second part. Okay? Who are the people who would like to know the answer of that question? Don't tell that I am interested. Okay? It doesn't matter that you are interested. Obviously, you have to be passionate about it, but you have to think about, okay, if I answer this question really perfect, in a real perfect word with the best available technique, who are the people who will be really happy to know the answer of this question? If you can figure it out, okay, that if I just answer this question, here are group of people who will be interested in knowing what I found. But if you have a question, you can't actually figure it out, that who wants to know the answer? That means you are not still asking the right question. The digging process has to go further, because you have to figure it out that who are the actually people. Okay? In some areas it's easier. Okay? In some areas it's difficult. If you are working in like biological sciences and things like that, and let's say obesity is a big problem, everybody sort of is aware of it, okay, and looking for a solution. So there it's not that difficult. But in social sciences, this is not that clear, that you are actually working on a problem where a large number of people are already sort of thinking about, oh, what's the answer of this question? Okay? Probably not. You are doing all that literature review and things like that, and trying to say that we have identified a gap. Now, you can also be in a trap there, okay, with the approach. Because one of the things we'll talk about is that gap worth filling? Okay? It's like, okay, so think about a research gap as a whole. Okay? So it's not worth filling that gap. The gap exists there because it's not worth filling. Why you care? Okay? because other people have, okay, blah, 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 have done this. These people have done that. Nobody has done this. And I'm the one who is going to do that. And you said, that's my justification, that why this question is important, isn't it? Okay? Now, it's a no-starter. You can't move forward with that. Okay? Because right there, I don't care. I'm saying nobody answered that because nobody cared about that. Not worth caring. And that's why it's sitting. Okay? Let's think about like a real estate. Okay? So if there is a property, nobody is sitting idle, probably it's not worth anything. So when I do all that literature review, and I want to say this, that here is I have found a gap that nobody has filled before me, and I'm the one going to fill it. Who cares? No, sir, please tell me why. My question will be still back to you. Do you get my point? That why that approach? A lot of people take that approach. Okay? A lot of people do that. And it's not an approach where, if you really want to be one of the top researchers in your area, okay, we have to be ambitious. If we don't challenge ourselves, if we don't have aspirations that will push us to that level of perfection, okay, we may or may not be able to reach that dream, okay, but we need to have dreams. We want to chase those dreams, okay? So I always believe that no matter where you come from, but if you know where you want to go, you put the hard work maybe somewhere, like we say, chand nahi to sitare banenge, okay? But you have to sort of go for that. So if you don't, this is an approach, a lot of people get into that, okay? And it's a typical, I don't know whether it's being taught that way, people, but this is what they will do, okay? They start with throwing some papers, and they'll say, okay, I did my literature review, so-and-so has done this, this and this has done, they have found this, and nobody has actually examined how this one impacts this thing. And I'm the one I'm doing, okay? And you think, oh, the moment I found the gap, I'm on to something, okay? Don't you think like that? Okay? But this is where the problem lies. This is where we as a society, a community of researchers around the world, we are not making progress because we are doing a lot of junk work, okay? That nobody wants to actually know what you found. If you got popped somewhere, you're done, you moved on to something else. And unless we change that mindset, it's a mindset issue. Unless we change that, we won't be able to make much.
The research has to be relevant. The relevance is an important point, but the relevance for whom you have to understand that for whom this question is relevant. So now let's think about it, that we can just trying to simple 2x2 matrix we are taking, that the relevance could be low or high, and then think about the second part is how well the question is being sort of answered. Okay? Is it answered really well or not that well? In terms of the techniques, the method you are using, or those can be, for a simple lack of better word, we are saying at this time just rigor. Okay? And we will continue talking what we mean by that and how to kind of know that the rigor is good or not. Okay? So let's say we can again think about that. There's low rigor versus high rigor. Okay? Now if you look at the 2x2, on the left bottom cell, where the relevance is low and the rigor is low, the 90% of the research is happening there. Okay? It's a low relevance. Okay. It's a low demand and high supply. Okay. So it's that nobody cares about that. There's very little demand for. And high supply because anybody who is doing it, a budding researcher or maybe an even experienced one, it's an easy one to kind of start. Okay? I got something, I threw some variables here, I ran some models, I got some stars. Here's what, definitely I'm onto something. Okay? But this is where the problem is, that it's a huge supply there around the world. It's a huge supply, but very little demand for that. Okay? nobody cares. And definitely, there is no way you can actually go to the top.
Demand and supply of the research method.
Yeah. The research that the output that you are producing, the research you are doing, you are producing an output. Right? So I'm looking at the supply of that kind of output and the demand from the society, from the journals, academic community, or managerial community, who is looking for it. So there is very little demand and there is a huge supply of that kind of work, and it's huge. Now, the other one is that, okay, the rigor might be low, but the relevance is high. Okay? The relevance is that you can identify and target group who would be interested in knowing the answer. And a lot of consulting kind of work people do there, which we can say that it's an applied nature. It's a consulting kind of thing. There are managerial audience, or in other areas who you can say the users of your output, potential users of your research. There is something that they can learn from that, how they are doing, what decisions they are making, what policies they are sort of making, and which they consider important or not as important. Some of that might be. Okay? So there is some work there. Again, it's not, there is not a huge sort of looking for an breaking kind of work. Now the next one is that the rigor is very, very high. Okay? Most of the top tier publications that fall in that category. Okay? The rigor is very high, and many times there's another problem that comes is that it has low relevance. Okay? That you have really answered a question really, 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 really well, but there are not many people interested in knowing the answer. So it's very tough to publish, right? Because it's really top tier. Right? There are only very small fraction of researchers are able to kind of break into that group. It's a very select group. Okay? But that's tough. Okay? But this is where even we can go there, we still feel pretty good about it. Okay? Because it's a very select community. But where we want to go, okay, if we can really do it, it's hard. Okay? That you can actually go in the cell where not only your rigor is very high, you're following a very scientific, high standard techniques, but you're also working on a question that many people are interested in knowing the answer. Okay? And if you can do that, you are something onto something. Okay? Because you have identified an issue that's important. You are working for something that you are going to provide a reliable answer because the rigor is high. Okay? So you have the ability, and we want to move to the right column at least. Okay? One of those two sets. As long as we are on that side, we're still okay. Okay? But we want to go to the green top one, right? If we can. But that's the aspiration. That's the aspiration part, is that we want to, because if you look at people commit to research questions too soon in their journey. I have seen many students, I work with many people around me, right? And there will be people who can be coming up with new questions every week. You can ask them, and they can come up with a new question. Because they are not thinking deep enough about the question. As a result, they are able to find many questions that have not been answered, and they think, oh, this question is interesting, another question is good, I can do this or that. But that's where the challenge is that you have to answer this question that is it's interesting or not. So there are some things I would like to say that the typical different approaches that we can actually take and try to understand that what kind of work I am doing. Okay? So again, for just the sake of simplicity, I'm going to use a 2x2 metric. Okay? Using 2 dimensions here, that is, I'm borrowing this framework from the innovation literature. So in the literature, you will see we talk about different types of innovation in which you can look at the components in a, let's just, you take a system that how there are some components, and the system is because the components are linked using a certain logic. Okay? and you can think that how to improve that system. So you can improve the system by improving maybe the components itself. Right? Think about, let's say you have a laptop or a PC, right? A desktop. And you can say, okay, I will increase the RAM of my computer. I have 8 GB, I'll go to 16 GB. I'll have a faster computer. Right? Now I'll have better. So you're improving the component. Now the second piece is in the typical product as a system is that what kind of logic they are following to connect those components. Okay? So it's the logic of the organization, that how things fit together. So there are two ways we can improve. Okay? Either the changing the component themselves, or the second one, the how they come together. You can make changes in one or both. Okay? By looking at that, I'm creating, again, 2 by 2, okay? In which the first one is, so the core concept in this one here is, let's say in your area where you are working on, you have identified your literature, right? The theory you are working with. What are the core concepts in that? Okay? What are the key constructs that are important in that area? Okay? Now, you can actually do a research, which could be that you're using the same concept and you are using the same theory. Theory is how the constructs are linked together. Right? That's what's the role of the theory is to provide a logic that how constructs fit together. So here in this cell, what people are doing is you're using the same constructs. Okay? You're using the same theory that others have done, but you're saying that you are doing in a new context. Okay? So the context one is here. So your justification for what you are doing is that you are applying this in a new context. That is my contribution. That we have seen this, like when I went to, so in 1998 I graduated from the MBA program here. We used to call it at the time MMS, I don't know if it is still MMS, it's an MBA. So we used to have, because there was a rivalry with the University of Allahabad, so they had an MBA and we were part of that, so we needed to have something different. Okay? So I go to them, and then as like people in Allahabad have typical passion for civil services and all of that, so I had that bug also because I was focusing on that. No, I don't want to do this. I want to go there and focus on that stuff. And then I tried my hands. I was not successful in that, doing that. And then an opportunity came to me that there was I was reading the Economic Times and there was an advertisement for a research associate in IIM Ahmedabad. Now, IIM is like a top place here, so I was excited. And research was something which excited me when I was like a child. My mother used to feel really sad that this child wants to become a scientist, and she was, I don't know what's going to happen. Okay? So she was not excited about it, because we think about scientists like they're mad, they just do some stuff, crazy thing. So, but I was always so excited about that. So I thought, okay, this is something I want to try. So I got down, I went there, and I thought, okay, I'll get an opportunity to work on good research. There are like top people from India, business schools, and they're working on this. I'll get an opportunity to work with those, and it will change my life. To my utter disappointment, when I went there, I found that they don't do actually research. So that was first part, okay, which was a huge setback for me at that time, that they don't do actually research. So they work on like case studies, like you can consider that. I was not very fan of that. So most of the thing was written like case studies. And then the second one, so at that time, the doctoral program was called the FPM program. And the state of the doctoral education in India, I mean, and that's the reason I have made only one commitment myself, is that everywhere I want to make an improvement just to the doctoral education. Nobody can solve all the problems, okay? So you have to identify a problem that you can go after with full passion. Okay? So this is one area where I identified, okay? This is one thing where I want to make some difference, because I've seen it, how people do it. And one of the ways I saw that, okay, people will be doing that, okay, There is somebody has done work in US somewhere in a different industry. We are going to actually apply that nobody has done in the Indian industry, and that is their work. That's all was the doctoral work was going on. Pretty disappointing. I was not very excited with that. Because what's going on? And this is all you're doing, you're just looking at something that would have done, just change the sample and run the same stuff, and all you're doing is like, oh, nobody has done it in India, I'm the one who's doing it. Yeah, but who cares about that? There is a level that people, there is a demand, there is an area. That's why there are tiers, different quality of the journals who will be interested in that one. So there may be some, but I wasn't thinking about that market. I didn't I mean, you don't spend hours of your life, years of your life to actually spend on something you want to really feel passionate about, making some difference. And what is the kind of work was going? That was all was going on at that time. So I was extremely sort of disappointed, and it took me a few years to sort of figure out what exactly I want to do in my life. But it allowed me to figure out that calling, okay? That this is what I want to do. And then I moved on. But the time I spent was very useful because I got to understand other things, right? Many other things. Not as much the research part, because they were not doing real research at that time. And it has changed now. Right? So the things have changed. Bangalore has changed. Calcutta has changed. They have changed the kind of people they recruit, the kind of the expectations they have to do the kind of work they are supposed to do. So those have changed. So this is way back in now I'm going back like 17, 18 years back. Okay? So it's many, many years ago that the situation was different. Okay? The people who were in the doctoral program were not actually the ones who were interested in pursuing PhD or something like that. They were the students who actually tried for the PGP program, but their rank was lower, so they couldn't actually make it there. So they went to the next year, which was just a next level of that, okay? The FPM program, and they became a doctoral student. So what they would do at that time also, the first year program was also the same. Okay? So all the FPM students and all the PGP students, they have the same coursework. Right? And because they are studying the same thing, working on the same stuff, so it should be fine. Okay? So that's the industry was also like asking for those people, and they were adopted and recruited. But I think then people realized that okay, now this is what we want to do. We want to get people who are passionate about research, not because that, oh, I'm here because I couldn't do something else. Okay? That mindset has to change, because then otherwise we cannot really make a real difference, because the basic motivation is different. So one of the things when I went to US and always amazed me, one thing which I found there was that in India, anybody I come across, I meet, I never met a person who said that I'm enjoying what I do. They always say, oh, I wanted to actually do this, but I couldn't do that, but I'm stuck here. And they could be district magistrate, IAS officers, like you can think about I'm not talking about anybody, okay? That they will always say that actually I wanted to do something else, but I couldn't do that, and I got stuck here. They're stuck. Okay? So everything they do is that a person who is stuck the way they do, that's what we are doing. So this is the thing which I feel that we need to change. And unless we actually make these some fundamental changes, the way we do things. So one of them really bothered me when I went there, like sweepers. Okay? I mean, how in the world the sweeper is going to enjoy the job? Why? I mean, what is in there? Okay? But you go there, that people are doing very simple things that are not exciting, that they would do in a way that from a distance at least, you say that this person actually enjoys. I actually met, the first time I went to IIM Ahmedabad, there was one person in the HR department where we actually went to report when I was going there, that was whistling and enjoying. That's the first person actually I met who was enjoying his job, whatever it was. But I never met anybody else who has actually, you can say that I'm really, this is all I wanted to do. So there is some kind of sorting there. Right? There are different motivators, that what exactly motivates them. Some point of time, okay, it's it's likely that it's maybe something we probably didn't intend to do that, but once you actually start doing it, you have to enjoy it, okay? Otherwise, you cannot do a good job of it. So we have to, no matter how you ended up there, you have to reorient yourself, okay? That, okay, now I have to enjoy it. I have to do it in a way that I'm going to enjoy it. And once you start doing it, you will make a huge difference to whatever you are doing, whatever work you are doing. It's that part which requires a different thinking. We have a society where always we try to find shortcuts. Everybody is, and if you don't actually do that, people think you're stupid. You're only smart if you don't follow any law. Then you consider that you are the smartest guy because in your office, you are the one who doesn't do anything but still gets away with that. That is the mindset I want. I mean, you can say this, should be talking about econometrics, okay? But I think these are some very core fundamental things that if we don't actually focus on those, we don't have the vision to do things right. The compromises, research involves compromises, okay? And it takes a lot of hard work to say that, okay, I'm not going to compromise. Like Dr. Geetika was talking about convenience sampling, okay? And the moment it comes to me, I just say, okay, I'm done with it. Okay? Just recently, there was a paper from British Journal of Management that came, and we have been saying this, okay? So don't actually ask the dependent variable questions and independent variable question from the same respondent. People say, oh, I have never come across a study who would have ever reported that, okay, I actually asked this question, both dependent variable and independent variable, using the same respondent, and I found a problem there. Never I've come across. Is it because the problem is not there? I'm not sure. Okay? So it has come to like that. It has become a customary, okay? That, oh, I conducted a hormones test for this, and I checked whether there is a single respondent bias in this, and I found that was not there, and I'm done. Now I move on. Those are the kind of work we should not be doing. And we are not doing as a society, we are not doing the real good stuff that is needed. That this is the kind of shortcut you are doing. You think that I can get away with that. Okay? And the problem with this, a lot of people do survey research because it all requires, okay, just 100 people, will get some responses. Or if we don't ask some friends to actually fill up some of those. Okay? What else? I just need 300 sample, I can get it. Really, that's what you want to do, and you want us to sort of take it seriously. So the biggest problem is that people can't trust the findings. Okay? The biggest problem is that because we can't see like what you have done. We are reading, trying to understand from your writing that what you might have done. And then we are trying to look for red flags. That is there a red flag somewhere where I am getting a sense that no. I can't trust this research. I can't. And anytime you get a feeling that this research has not been executed competently, the game is over for that research. Essentially, at least in good journals. Okay? There are low-tier journals might be still interested, the top journals are not interested. So some of this thing, I want to talk about it. So this is where what we call the incremental innovation. Okay? Incremental innovation is the one where there is the concept remains the same, the theory is the same, you're applying the same thing in a new context. So it's an innovation if you consider, we will call it an incremental innovation. Okay? So it's a improvement, but it's not a major improvement. It's a slight improvement because you are doing it in a new context. Okay? That's one kind of cell research. And you can see whether your research falls in that cell or not. Then the second is where we can say that you actually bring a construct that has not people considered. Right? So, and I think about a product where it's a new component you are introducing. So it has not been actually people look at, but you have come across. But you have to say how you have come across. But this is one kind of work where there is a thing that you are bringing something new. So what you are doing is that you don't change the theory. Okay? The theory still remains the same. You are providing one more variable or construct. In that theory, we are saying that, okay, this is, so it's not about the context, because in the context both are same. Okay? It's like you did it in the US pharmaceutical industry, I'm doing it in Indian pharmaceutical industry. Okay? So it's just everything remains the same, the model is same, variables are same, nothing different. Okay? Now another one where the theory remains the same, that how the world operates, it still remains the same, but what is different here is that something people have not considered and you are actually bringing and you're saying that this is an important thing and why this is I considered important. So that's a good contribution. Right? But we can call it a modular innovation from the innovation language perspective. That's what we call it, a modular innovation. Now the third one is where that you are discovering, you are revisiting the theory. Okay? You are providing a different logic. So the variables are the same, the constructs are the same. Okay? But how they relate to each other and why they relate to each other, you are providing a different explanation. Now you are doing something really big, right? Because you are providing a new kind of perspective to a question that has been asked by others, but now you're saying that, okay, this is how you have looked at it, and you have probably assumed the world operates like this. But here's my take on it. Here is the reason I think, no, this is now how things work. The same things, they work differently. Here's my logic, why it works different. Right? If you're doing something like that, if your research question, you can see. So what I'm trying to do here is that you think about your research question. Okay? What exactly the type of research question you are asking, and see which cell it's going to fit in. Okay? Is it going to fit in on the left, right, or which one? Okay? So we have kind of talked about the three so far. Okay? The last one is sort of obvious, which we are saying that not only you are actually bringing a new perspective, that how things actually connect or function, but also you are bringing some new things into that model. Okay? There is a new construct that you are bringing. At the same time, you are revisiting how things are linked together. What's the theory you are using? So you are changing the theory, and you are also bringing something new on the theory. Okay? If you're doing that, we can call it a radical innovation or a breakthrough innovation. Okay? So if your question is in one of these three, okay, you are okay. Okay? If your question is one of these two, you are in a great spot. Okay? But if you are in this cell, okay, if somebody asked me like early on, like for example, when I was teaching this just course in Virginia Tech, so I was teaching from Michigan, okay, so online, 3 hours lecturing online, okay, with the 3 students, okay. It's kind of tough thing to do, like when there are large number of students, you can actually ask more people what they think. When there are only 2, 3, it's pretty tough to do. Okay? But one of the things I tried to do was that try to understand them, what kind of question you are asking, okay? Because they have to write a term paper at the end of it. So they have to write something new, and they will read something, do some literature review, and they'll say, okay, I got something here, okay? So they'll come up with something. Okay, here's my model. And then I was kind of probing through that, and then slowly it will start kind of falling apart, and then say, yeah, I think it's not good, okay? I'm not trying to discourage them. I'm just trying to help them see through that what is the thinking you need to have to really understand what you're doing, okay? Because the one thing I also tell in the doctoral programs, many people like complain that, oh, my advisor is not good and it's like not helping and I can't really do here. But my advice to those situations is that people who are in those situations is once you finish it, the PhD, now you're going to be on your own. Okay? So if you don't figure out how to do it yourself, okay, now you will be in bigger trouble, because then there is no natural help or supposed to be help that coming your way. Okay? So you figured out what's the way to do things, right? And once you know, because this is all I'd say, okay, so what I have learned in my the PhD program, I don't use any of that today. Nothing that I actually use today, I learned in my graduate program, in my PhD program. Absolutely nothing. So only thing we learn in the PhD program is how to teach ourselves, how to learn. Okay, that's all we learn. That how to teach ourselves. Once I figured it out, that how I can teach myself, your problem is solved. Okay? Because you don't need anybody now, because you can teach yourself. You need to figure out how to do that. And this is what you need to learn. Because the rest of the life, you have to do that. You have to grapple with problems that you haven't thought about others, and you have to figure it out, understand, like what is the issue, how to go about solving this. So the all we want trying to do is that get to that point, right, where you are now your own advisor. So when I actually graduated from Virginia Tech, the first thing I did was I became my own advisor. I said, okay, I get paid now 10 times of what I was paid when I was a doctoral student, and now I have the luxury to teach myself. So I started just teaching myself. I became my own advisor. And like people say, experience is what? I mean, experience is the mistakes that we have done in our life. That's what we call experience, right? And all we want to say when we share experience is that, okay, these are the things I did. They were not good things, okay? I don't want you to do the same mistakes. And that's what people call it. That's my experience. Okay? I'm telling you from my experience is what, right? That these are the things I did which was not good, and I don't want you to do the same mistakes. So I learned many things. I tried to actually influence the program that here are the things that you need to do differently. So they actually set up now a PhD advisory council, and I was appointed to become the chair of that advisory council, okay? Because I'm really, really passionate about the doctoral program, doctoral education, because we want to be the knowledge producers, okay? We all, if you don't really good at what we do, we are going to produce junk. And we are doing a lot of that around the world. So this is so, I really, truly feel grateful that all of you actually think about it. No, I need to actually know things. Maybe some of you already know, some of you maybe not. Okay? But I hope there will be something you will take out of this 5-day session that we will spend time with you. That I want you to go back and do work in a different way. Okay? In a different way. You become a different researcher, not the same one you came here. That's the task I also do to my students. Okay? When I talk to them on day one, I tell them, assess yourself today, who you are, what you know today. You are with me in the next 4 months. We will be working on this. At the end of it, I want you to become different. And I would consider myself a success if I can see that you say, yes, I'm not the same person anymore. And that would be my sort of gain, that I was able to make. And it's not that I have done something. It's you who are doing it. Okay? You have to take those tough decisions that, okay, I'm not going to take those shortcuts. Because we do all these because we are making many compromises at many stages. Okay? There are times, okay, I have to be done with it. Who cares? I just want to be done with my PhD. I'm spent so enough time on this. I just want to be done with it. Okay? That has become the mindset, and this is where the problem is, because you're not trying to do something well. You just want to be done with this. If you want to be done with it, then chances are you are not going to do a pretty good job of it. So that's why my focus is that let's do something more meaningful. Let's make the changes that will be meaningful. So if you look at, so this is a little bit in terms of how the problem you consider from a system perspective. Okay? The literature review. Okay? So the literature review is that, but it's a different kind of review. Okay? So you're doing it that, okay, whether I am changing the theory, I'm bringing a new construct, or I'm doing both, or I'm just applying it in a new context. Okay? What exactly I am doing. So that was one. Okay? Now let's think from a different perspective, which is the user's perspective. Okay? Who is going to be the consumer of this work? Now think from their perspective. Okay? So this is the audience who I want to influence. Okay? that the way they are doing things, I want them to do things in a different way. Okay? So those are the users, practitioners. If we are in this like business, we are thinking about the managers, okay? The things they are doing, the kind of decisions they make, how they do those things. We want to do something that they start looking at and doing something slightly different. So if you look from that perspective, that you consider the approaches, and we can see that what are the different ones. Okay? So now you can look at that the kind of thing that is an existing problem. Okay? Managers are aware of that, and you are making them understand a little bit better the practices. So it may be slight changes, but not much on that. Now, let's say you actually look at a problem in which the current practice is not applicable. You are telling them that what you consider a horse is actually not a horse. Okay? It's a zebra. And if you can do that, you are opening their eyes. Right? That they are thinking that they are dealing with a horse, but actually you are telling them that no, guys. You are actually not, it's not a horse, it's a zebra. Think about it. Okay? You are opening a new eyes for the users because they have to think it pretty differently. Now, the other one is, it's an existing problem, but the practices are not applicable. Right? So you are saying that, okay, now things have changed. Okay? And you said that, okay, your dogs don't hunt anymore. Okay? So what worked in the past is not going to work anymore. Okay? So those are the two. The most interesting one is where you can actually tell that a manager that, okay, what you are actually holding is not a horse. You think it's a horse, it's not a horse. It's a different problem. Okay? But you're telling them that you are thinking it, that it's the same problem you were dealing in the past. But it's not the same problem, it's a different problem. It's a different animal. And you need to solve it differently. You need a different solution to that problem. So if you can do something like that, then you are making a big difference to the practicing community, that you are telling them that it's a different thing that you are handling. If you look at some of the risks involved, okay, that how you do different things in terms of the problem you are understanding or you are going to research, what can happen with respect to the existing understanding. Okay? So let's say you are saying that, so people understand it, the world operates like that, and you have done all of that work, and you tell them that yes, the world actually works like that, as you think. Okay? So I have also found similar findings which others have found. So I'm not changing essentially anything. Okay? So people will say, okay, that's very obvious. So we already know it. So if you have something that people will say, oh, we already know it. Okay? So there is nothing interesting about it. So if you have to look at it, that okay, who is going to find interesting? Okay? So if you're saying that so many studies have found this, and I did on a similar thing, and I found a similar result. Right? So essentially, nothing is changing. So if nothing is changing, who is going to find that interesting? Okay? Nobody will find it interesting. Now, let's say you go and you say that I have found something that is going to change everything you know about how the world works. Now, you may be on something big, okay? But you will have tough time getting through with that idea, because you will have an uphill battle. There are people who believe that the earth is flat. Okay? Now you are the one who is coming and saying that no. Earth is not flat, it's wrong. Okay? So you are trying to challenge their existing worldview, how they look at things. So you will have difficult time. Okay? It's just even though the truth is what they believe is absolute. Okay? But what you're going to hear back from them is that what you are talking is absurd. This is not how world operates. Okay? So if you get into that part, just be careful. Okay? That you have to definitely, you are onto something big. Okay? But you have to handle it with care so that you can actually get your confidence and then slip in what you have actually found. So it requires a fundamental different approach, because if you take a very head-on collision, okay? So there are all these Goliaths sitting and say, okay, everything that you know about this whole thing is wrong, okay? I have found an answer and it changes everything. You will, good luck, okay? Chances are you will not have success, just because the odds are against you. But if you have something like that, believe me, you are on something. Okay? It's just that you need to handle it slightly carefully, because it's changing everything people know. Where the safest bet is in the middle. Okay? That it changes something, it continues that, okay? It modifies the world. Okay? It doesn't change everything, it changes something. As if you have like that, you are in a situation where you are going to change something. Not everything, but something. Then you can say, okay, this is where you will have success. You have got an interesting research question, and you have something that will change in a slightly, the world will be changed as a function of that, because you have got something that is interesting. So the question is, what is interesting? Okay? Like people will say, okay, what if you tell your research? We're always very passionate about what we do, okay? The things that we do, and that's why we become researchers, okay? Because we like to think about all the time. But you think about like that, okay, how you are going to tell that to somebody else, and that other person telling to you that, oh, I find that interesting. Okay? That's the challenge we are facing. Okay? It's not that I find what that is interesting. I have to actually hear from somebody else and telling me that I think what you are working on is interesting. Until you reach that point, you are not onto an interesting research question. Okay? So a lot of this idea, but I just wanted to focus on this part, okay? Because we get lost time in some of the other stuff. But to me, it's not the concepts that matter. It's the thinking that matters. And my focus is more on the way we think. We have to change that, but the next part, we are going to do the technical session. So it will be like a hands-on thing. We want to actually go to the lab. I'll have maybe a few minutes, I can go through a few slides. But those are mostly trying to improve the practices. Okay? How to do a better quality research, okay? In terms of how you define, how you choose your sample, how you describe your study, so that people can say that I can trust your finding. Okay? The biggest problem is that we can't trust it. In the social science, if all you're showing correlations, then no more people are interested in that. Now the world is changing and expectations are changing. Now in social sciences, people are looking for causal inference. Can you tell me, can you show me that what you have got is actually a cause? Okay? This was done way back by a researcher Hill in 1965. Okay? So these slides will be there for you. Okay? So it will be in the Google Drive. Okay? All these slides, you will have access to the slides. So don't worry about trying to.
You cannot read.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Okay? It's just for some reason, it's not clear. But I'll go through what exactly are things. Okay? So in order to show that there is a cause and effect relationship, there are certain requirements. Okay? The cause have to happen before the effect. Okay? That's the first requirement. That I have to show that it's not simultaneously happening. Okay? Because if it's simultaneously happening, then there is no cause-effect relationship. There is just a correlation. Okay? So that's the first requirement. So there are several requirements where then you have to say that if I change my cause, does the effect change? Okay? Then I have a little bit more confidence that yes, maybe what you're saying could be a cause, because when I see it change you're changing the cause, the effect is changing. Right? So these are some small things that you can do, and only one thing out of this list is an old list. Only one thing social scientists cannot do, okay? Which is the experiment. we cannot do experiment with the problems we are dealing with. Okay? Let's say if you're working on government policy, you cannot actually conduct a randomized experiment and say that, okay, these governments will do this, these will be doing that. It's a control group, this is the treatment group, and I'm going to run it. We cannot do. We cannot do with the forms, we cannot do with many situations we deal with where we cannot randomly assign and create a control group and a treatment group. Okay? And that's one thing we cannot do. So now there is a whole new approach has come where we are trying to see not only, so in the older time you say, okay, that these companies did something and they benefited. And you are showing that, okay, here is, I'm showing that they did this and they have a benefit, I'm showing a relationship between that. Now, that's not enough to say that, okay, is it that? What would have happened if those people, the same people, had not done that? Okay? Let's think about, you are looking at the effect of smoking, mothers smoking during their pregnancy, and how it impacts the child's weight. Okay? Now it's a simple problem, and think about it, okay, how you're going to answer the question. Obviously, you cannot actually conduct an experiment, say some women to smoke and some to not smoke, okay, and have a randomized, if you have done that. Okay? The other thing, the same time problem is that what we call a counterfactual, okay, that we observe only one of the two things, not both. Okay? One of the two things means the women who are smoking, we only observe the effect of their childlike weight when they have smoked. Okay? We don't know what would have the weight of their children if they had not smoked. Okay? So what would have been the weight at that time? So unless you know that difference, we can actually take, okay? Because we don't know the other side. The women who actually did not smoke, we don't know what would have happened if they had done that. Okay? So this is how the world of social science is changing. Okay? Now we are asking that our methods to use and draw through the statistical techniques to create those counterfactuals and be able to answer not only that this group did this and they benefited that much. Okay? We also want to tell them if they had not done that, how much would have been their benefit. Okay? There are many issues involved. Okay? Let's say you are studying a problem that who actually gets paid more. Whether the finance majors are paid more or marketing majors are paid more. Now, there is maybe people understand something about those things. Okay? They have chosen themselves about an expectation, about the outcome. Maybe different kind of people have gone. So if you simply look at the salary of the finance versus compare the salary of the marketing majors, you won't be able to tell that whether this difference is difference due to the different majors or those different kind of people have gone into that. They modified their behavior. What exactly has happened? Okay? So those pieces are changing, and this is where a lot of work have to be done. Okay? So the thing about the empirical research is, this is the burden we feel. Because nobody is watching you what you are doing with your work. Okay? You have to write and tell this is what I did. Okay? This is how I went about conducting my study. Now the question is, can I trust your findings? This is the burden you have. That nobody is watching you what you have done. You are telling all that, and I'm just going to judge based on what you are telling, that how you did and what you did to infer whether I can actually trust your finding or not. Okay? And that's the judgment the reviewers are going to make. The editor is going to make. What they are trying to see that, okay, I see what you have done, okay, but I'm trying to figure out whether I can actually trust these people, what they are saying they had done. Okay? Does it make sense? Whether you have a theory. Okay? So we talk about the interplay between theory and the method. Okay? You have correlation without a sound theoretical logic, And it's just a correlation. It doesn't really have the underlying grounding and why this relationship exists. Okay? So you don't have a theory to connect that. You're just showing me there are two things are connected. Okay? There are so many things are connected. Okay? But that doesn't mean there is a causal relationship. And there is a problem that happens, which we say, let me skip a few of these. And this is another problem that our world is facing. Right? That people are looking for variables, changing their model until they can find something significant. Right? That and the moment they find something significant, they think that they really got something big. Okay? Now, that has created a huge problem in the social sciences. Okay? Because we are actually hypothesizing after we have known the result. Okay? And presenting it as if I didn't know what is the result is going to be, and everything actually I did, and then this is what I found. There is a term for that. Okay? Now, we call harking. Harking is essentially hypothesizing after the results are known. And when we are reading somebody's paper, we are trying to actually figure out, okay, is this harking? Can I actually believe your argument? Because if it's not a real sounding work, thinking that why these things are connected, you actually already know because these are connected, this is going to be positive relationship. So if there is an evidence that it might be negative, you are going to overlook that. Okay? Because you know that it's not going to go the negative. I already know that. Okay? So many things, like somebody was saying that we don't have a clarity on many relationships. Okay? You can see the relations could go two ways. Okay? Could be there may be findings that are saying it's a positive relationship. There are another set of findings that are saying it's a negative relationship. Okay? And you've done something, and it may be positive or negative. So what you're going to do is that you are going to actually overlook the other world which has found, say, as if it doesn't exist, and you're going to focus on the ones that are consistent with what you have found. And this is where our whole community is facing a huge crisis. It's a global crisis, believe me. It's a global crisis. It has become such a huge problem that people are thinking what to do, how to actually address this problem. Okay? But you would know, as a little bit more experienced researchers, when you see something, you know what it is. Okay? So sometimes it's hard to tell, but when you see, you know it. Okay? It's like those many times. Okay? So my thing is that the honesty in the research is one of the most important part. And if we don't actually do the work with the greatest sincerity and honesty, we are in trouble. And this is a crisis we are facing here. Okay? So let's take a break, and then we'll go to the technical issues. Okay? Thank you very much, guys.